Evening. I want to welcome you to the presentation for parents whose students have been invited to accelerate in English, in social studies, and in math. I'm Kathy Sherwin, the Academic Administrator for English, and I'm here with my colleague, Lisa Kissinger, the Social Studies Administrator in grades 6 through 12. During our presentation, we are going to be referencing academic progressions documents, which you will be able to view on your screen through this presentation, but you can also access in a larger, clearer way by going to the district website. All academic progressions documents are found on the academics page of the district website with links to each subject area. So to begin discussion of English and Social Studies acceleration in English and Social Studies really attempts to match the readiness and the motivation of the child with the complexity of the curriculum in both subject areas. Parents need to know that it is only one of several ways to be in advanced courses at Shenendehowa. Because students who accelerate in English and Social Studies are 1 year ahead of their peers in terms of their coursework, acceleration in English and Social Studies can lead to 5 units of credit in both subjects. This is a competitive program. It is definitely competitive to be recommended. Teachers work together very closely in order to ensure a best recommendation for each child that we believe is ready to accelerate. It's a challenging program, it's thought-provoking, and it's really fun if you like English and Social Studies. One of the things that students really enjoy about acceleration is that they start off in the program in a cohort. A cohort is a small group of students that moves together sequentially from course to course for the first couple of years of the accelerated program. They form a strong bond and make memories together while they're learning. I do want to mention that acceleration is not the only way to access the highest level of coursework in English and Social Studies. And by that, I mean AP and honors level courses. In fact, in both English and Social Studies, there is no course that is closed to any student in the 612 program. Students, well, we want to talk for just a couple of minutes about graduation requirements. Students in the middle school take English every year, grades 6, 7, and 8. When they move to high school, they are required to take 4 units of credit in order to graduate. And of course, they must pass the English Regents Exam, which takes place at the end of grade 11. Students who accelerate actually leave high school with 5 units of credit in English.
In New York State, Social Studies is required in grades 6, 7, and 8. Students also need 4 units of high school credit in Social Studies to graduate. Social Studies programs offer 2 Regents exams. However, at this point, passing 1 Social Studies Regents exam is the minimum requirement for every student, and then students have choice on whether or not they will use the second exam for their graduation credit. If you pass both Social Studies Regents exams in New York, you have earned something called the Humanities Pathway.
You should now be looking at the English progressions document. This is the document that I mentioned earlier when I showed you how to access progressions documents through the district website. This evening, we are talking about the accelerated progression, which is at the bottom of the document. It is the 3rd row at the bottom of the document. You will notice that when students begin acceleration in grade 7, they take an English course called English 7-8. In English 7-8, students take 2 years of English in 1. So by the time they finish their 7th grade year, they have already earned credit in grade 7 and grade 8, and they then begin their first high school credit-bearing course in grade 8. And that course is called English 9 Honors Accelerated. From there, students move to High School West during their 9th grade year when they actually take a 10th grade honors level course called World Culture and World Literature. That's an integrated course taught by both a social studies and an English teacher. When I spoke earlier about students being in a cohort for the first couple of years of acceleration, the cohort is in place from grade 7, grade 8, and through grade 9. When students leave High School West and move to High School East during their 10th grade year, their choices for courses expand, and they can actually move between the progressions, selecting courses that are a best fit for them. The cohort disbands between grade 9 and grade 10.
Social studies is set up in a very similar way. Students in the acceleration program are compact their 7th and 8th grade social studies curriculum together in 1 year. They complete that in 7th grade. In 8th grade, they move on to their first high school credit-bearing course, Global History and Geography 9 Accelerated. In their 9th grade year, when they move to High School West, they are enrolled in this paired humanities course, World Culture, World Literature. They take those two courses together. And then when they move to East as sophomores, typically, and we'd strongly encourage students to be enrolled in AP US History as sophomores. And then as they are juniors in their 11th grade year, they would be enrolled in the 12th grade social studies classes. And we have a little bit of choice for them at that level, but most students enroll in a Syracuse University course called Introduction to Policy Studies, and they take our Advanced Economics Honors course. That then meets all of the 4 graduation credit requirements for social studies in the high school, freeing them up then in their senior year to take our 2 college level electives, Syracuse University's psychology course and Syracuse University's sociology course. Or if they would like to, because they really love world history, at that point, they may also enroll in our AP World History Modern course. I think what's really important to emphasize about what makes acceleration different than our other course offerings, couple of things. The first is that social studies is compacted, so 2 years of state curriculum is taught into 1 as 7th graders. And English in 7th grade, they read different novels than students do in either English 7 Honors or obviously the grade level English course. They do different types of assignments, and they will continue in the seminar structure, which is something that we introduced to students in 6th grade. So there's a significant difference in the pace and the expectations of students, and it begins right away in the first year of the program. This slide talks about 2 other significant differences for the acceleration program in English and social studies. And I do want to point out, I think you might hear this a couple of times in the presentation, these 2 programs are paired together. You cannot accelerate just in English without accelerating in social studies, and vice versa. You cannot accelerate just in social studies without being accelerated in English. And that's a really important thing to understand. The other point that's important is that we do expect students to have a much higher level of autonomy and independence through the program. We have teachers that teach in this program that have worked for years with accelerated students, so they understand the special dynamics of having a gifted and talented child in these 2 subject areas, but we still expect students to be independent, mostly able to manage their time, although honestly that is kind of what we teach them in 7th and 8th grade, how to manage their time. And as Mrs. Sherwin talked about, to really enjoy the subject matter the most. So your child's level of independence in the last school year, for example, is a pretty good indicator of their readiness to be able to participate in this program. Continuing on with the differences of acceleration, we ask students to make a 3-year commitment to this program starting in grade 7. So if you accept the invitation to accelerate in English and social studies, you are committing to stay in the program in grade 7 and grade 8 and grade 9. Why is that? Not because we're trying to be mean, but because at the end of their 8th grade course in both subjects, they will have already earned 1 high school credit in English and 1 high school credit in social studies. And at Shenendehowa, we require students to be enrolled in social studies and English every year in high school. So it's not possible for them to skip a year and not take social studies and English as 9th graders and then pick it back up again when they come to East. So that's why we're looking for a 3-year commitment to the program. And it's important for us to point out also at this point that the paired humanities course, world culture, world literature, are the only courses for accelerated students in High School West. This slide shows you graphically what we're trying to explain here, in that they are enrolled in middle school. There are 2 sections of accelerated 7-8 in social studies, 2 sections of accelerated 7-8 in English. Those are tri-building sections. They feed into just 2 sections of Cult Lit in West. And then when they travel to High School East, the program opens up for them. So there are more choices for them to make about the courses that they want to take, which is the other reason why we ask them to make the commitment to the program through their 9th grade year. The acceleration program has a pretty strenuous recommendation process attached to it. English, reading, and social studies teachers together need to agree on the recommendation for students to be placed into the acceleration program. So imagine, if you could, imagine for a second, those 3 teachers on the team sit together, look at student data. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Look at student data, talk about student performance throughout the year, and then all have to agree on the recommendation for acceleration. We call it the consensus recommendation. For honors, we don't require that consensus among the 3 teachers. For the honors program, students can be recommended separately by their English teacher and their social studies teacher or their social studies teacher. So the 2, for honors, the 2 subject areas are not linked together in the same way, and so they're not paired in the same way. We ask teachers to make the recommendations for students in the spring, and there's some pieces that you're going to be able to tell when you look at your child's portal that are going to help give you some information about why students may have been recommended for the program. And we talk about that with this presentation for parents because we're aware that we combine the math and the English and social studies together. And so there may be some parents of children in this call, in this meet, who were not recommended for acceleration in English and social studies. And we kind of want you to understand maybe where that recommendation might be coming from. So English, reading, or critical inquiry and social studies teachers meet together. As I said, they look at students' academic performance against a number of data points. We have a rubric that we have developed, proprietary rubric for Shenendehowa that we have developed, and the teachers use that rubric. Teachers look at course grades. Teachers look at performance on key assignments and grades in quarters 1 and 2, and we start this early enough that they only really have grades up to the interim period in quarter 3. Grade 5 reading score, reading level score, and if available, state assessment scores from grades 4 and 5. You can tell, if you go back just for a sec, Kev, you can tell if an assignment is a key assignment because there should be an asterisk, it's a hard word to say, in next to its title in the gradebook parent portal, because we recognize that not every assignment that a teacher may ask a child to do is really going to give you an indication of things you're going to hear about in the rubric in just a few minutes. That would not be fair to all students if they were consistently, continuously evaluated against standards for gifted and talented students. So there are some assignments that are more, I would say, illuminating in their ability to indicate whether your child is ready for acceleration or not.
So now I'm going to focus a little bit more on the evaluation rubric that Ms. Kissinger mentioned earlier. It is a rubric that we developed in-house. The evaluation rubric is meant to help teachers make evidence-based decisions by identifying the qualities that are most often possessed by an accelerated student or an honors student. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on the profile of an accelerated student. But we do want you to know that the evaluation rubric was based on the Next Gen standards for English and also the new social studies practices. The rubric itself has 6 categories. You can see them listed here. We are looking at key skills that are required for success and acceleration, including reasoning, questioning, reading, writing, speaking and/or discussion, and then academic habits. No one of these is weighted more heavily than the other, but instead, teachers make an evaluation for each and then holistically determine whether or not a child is best recommended for acceleration. When it comes to reasoning, students who accelerate are skillful in their reasoning. As we mentioned earlier, they are independent in terms of their thinking. They can come to a text or content in social studies or English and be able to identify themes. They easily evaluate and analyze information. They're creative problem solvers. They draw insightful conclusions, and those conclusions allow them to present strong arguments and within each subject area and make connections between the subject areas. When it comes to questioning, the accelerated student is really noted for initiating questioning. The accelerated student is naturally curious. They're looking to make connections across disciplines. They are interested in pursuing their own inquiry. Again, naturally curious is probably the best way to describe the accelerated student. And as we said earlier, the accelerated student, generally speaking, loves English and social studies and wants to know more about each of those subject areas. When it comes to reading, the accelerated student loves to read. Again, loves English and social studies, wants to read more in each subject area. When the accelerated student comes to a text, they're able to make deep meaning of the themes. They can look critically at how the author has crafted the text. They can see how the purpose of the text and the point of view in which the text is narrated gives rise to what the text is all about and what it has to say to the world. And again, making insightful connections. When it comes to writing, accelerated students are pretty skillful writers. Typically, they have a unique voice. Their unique voice shines in their writing. Their writing does not sound formulaic. They're often willing to take a risk, move outside the typical 5-paragraph structure in writing, let's just say. Their writing is generally well-developed, detailed, and they're able to manipulate language so that they can communicate the message that is intended. When it comes to speaking and discussion, the accelerated student likes to get right in there in a seminar-style discussion and talk about issues, debate issues. They come to discussion prepared and are able to support their opinions with details from research, from texts that they have been reading. They can build on each other's ideas, piggybacking off each other. They question each other. And really enjoy discussion. Again, students that like to participate in discussion are really the hallmark of an accelerated student. And because they're in a cohort for the first several years, their confidence in participating in discussion blossoms. When it comes to academic habits, we believe that the accelerated student who is most successful is independent, the student who can manage their time. And as Ms. Kissinger said earlier, we really do teach them in grade 7 how to manage their time, how to manage multiple projects, keep multiple balls in the air, be conscious of a timeline, meet a deadline, look ahead, prepare in advance. And this is generally done more and more independently as the student matures and moves through the process. Again, never perfect, but we really believe that the academic habits are generally something that an accelerated student has under control.
So next steps, if you have heard the presentation and think, not really sure my child is ready for that challenge, then we would ask that you email our secretary, Karen Kislowski, and her email address is on this slide, and let her know that, that you're declining the invitation for acceleration in English and social studies. We will automatically put students that we invite to accelerate whose parents or family, student, whoever, that decline the invitation, we will automatically put them into the honors level. So they have a reserved seat in our honors level if they decline the invitation for acceleration. If you are not recommended, I guess maybe if your child versus you, but if your child was not recommended for acceleration, but you would like us to reevaluate your child, you need to get in touch with your counselor, your school counselor. They have a form they fill out. They'll ask you some questions. They'll have that conversation with you. And we ask that you make those requests for changes as soon as you can. We're looking for those really to be able to evaluate those starting next week. No later than Tuesday of next week. I think the request, we make final determinations. We'll talk to the teachers. We look at the grades and the scores and all the data points ourselves. Counselors will let you know if the answer is yes, and we will let you know if the answer is no. And we usually try to give as much detail as we can to explain the rationale for the decision. That's important to us that you know about your child's performance through the eyes of the teachers and through our eyes, which we recognize are a different set of eyes that you have when you think about your children.
One question that has been asked is how many students will be in both English and social studies accelerated classes. I know we had mentioned earlier that we run 2 classes at the grade level in English and social studies, so it's about 55 students. Would you say that's accurate, Ms. Kissinger?
We'd like to try to run it no larger than 60 because a class size of 30 is pretty challenging. So yeah, I would say that, yeah. And so the ideal size is somewhere between 55 and 57 because that splits nicely.
Yes.
Yes.
The second question that was entered in the chat is an English question asking, is there a list of books that students will read that is available and posted somewhere? And the answer to that is yes. On the district website, if you click on the English progressions document, there's a link at the bottom of the document to texts that are commonly taught at each grade level. Now, teachers do have the ability to choose among the titles that you see listed in that document. I do know that Ms. Horton, who is the English teacher in the English 7-8 courses that accelerated students will take next year, always does communicate prior to the start of the summer to give students an idea of some of the texts that they'll be reading. There will be a summer assignment as well that she will likely post also to the district summer learning site that is under construction still and will be posted soon. So I can't quote a list of books this evening, but please know that the information is generally available, and there is more information forthcoming. The next question that's in the form is, if a child is in acceleration and later finds that they cannot handle the course load or the workload, is it possible for them to move out of acceleration? Ms. Kissinger, do you want to respond to that one?
Sure. Before I do, though, I just want to say, I know there's some people that came into the meet at 6:30 thinking they were going to be hearing the English and Social Studies presentation that may be a little bit confused right now. So I would say hang in there. We had to do a schedule flip because of an internet problem with the math presenter. So we'll wrap up in a second for those that were on with us at 6 that heard it, and then Mrs. Sherwin and I can probably go through it again for the parents who just joined at 6:30. Okay. So the question was, can you leave the acceleration program? Right, that was the question, right?
Yes, yes.
Right,
If
okay.
a child is in acceleration and finds that
Right.
they want to move out of the accelerated progression, are they able to do that?
Right. So the answer is a qualified yes, I would say. And what we'd like to do is make that decision collectively with the parents, the child, and the teachers sooner rather than later. And the reason for that is in that early on in the presentation, we talked about making that 3-year commitment. Once you have earned that high school credit, it gets pretty complicated to drop back out of the acceleration program. So we usually find that students and parents and teachers know, I would say pretty clearly by the end of the second quarter of 7th grade. So that's halfway through the 7th grade course. So there's usually some settling in the first quarter that happens. That's pretty typical. Everyone's kind of used to that. By the end of the second quarter, so that's, the end of the first semester, that's the end of January of the 7th grade year, it's pretty apparent who's in the right place. And so that is like the optimum time to make the switch back into the honors level. We would expect students from acceleration to be successful in the honors level if they need to drop out of the acceleration program, because they have not covered too much of the course. They haven't gotten too deep into the program. And so that seems to be about the best window for kids to make that switch. Any later and it gets dicey. It's a pretty informal way of saying it, but I would say that's a pretty accurate description of how complicated it gets.
Another question has been asked, are there 2 classes per middle school or 2 classes for all of the tri-building? And the answer to that is there are 2 classes for the tri-building. I think we said earlier, no more than 60 students total.
Right. It is an extremely competitive program.
Yeah.
It is designed to be small. It is not designed to be a large program. Our honors program, on the other hand, is designed to be large. There are sections in each middle school for both honors English and honors social studies. So there are many, many more seats in that program.
Question again has been asked about a summer assignment and the requirements of being prepared for fall classes. And I will say there will be a summer assignment. That summer assignment is, if I recall correctly, Ms. Kissinger, an interdisciplinary summer assignment that revolves around a particular text. And all of that information will be communicated through the district summer learning site, which will be linked on the district website, but is at the moment currently under construction. And I'm going to come back to you at this point, because those are all of the questions for English and social studies that were put into the Google form.
But again, like Mrs. Peverly, we are more than happy to answer any questions individually. You know, our email contact information, we can actually project the slide again, I'm sure, really quickly, just to give you those email contacts. And also our information, our contact information is available on the district website. So we are accessible, available, and happy to talk to you about your child's academic placement.